Hello, my friend, and welcome to Something for Everybody. My name is Aaron Machbitz, and today is a solo episode of the podcast, and it's a very special and important one, probably the most special episode that I do every single year. So let's jump right in. This episode is about my sister. My sister, her name is Rachel Machbitz, and she died by suicide in September 3rd, 2018. So the reason why this episode is so special every year is I do a very similar episode around the same time every year. So for context, she was born May 1st, 1990. May also happens to be Mental Health Awareness Month. So I do an episode surrounding her and Mental Health Awareness Month every May. So you can check out those episodes previous if you want some more context about that. And then September is the month that she passed away, September 3rd, 2018. September happens to also be Suicide Prevention Month. And so I do an episode around her and her beauty and amazingness, as well as around some information about suicide and suicide prevention. So in today's episode, I will talk about, after I discuss my sister and some things that are happening and some emotions that I feel, I will discuss 8 common myths that surround suicide. So again, this episode is extremely important for a number of reasons. I'm recording this episode on August 29th, 2024. This episode releases on the 6th of September, so it's all around the same time. And so there's an added layer this year in 2024 because I'm getting married in September, on September 22nd, 2024. And so there's just a lot of mixture of emotions that I'm feeling. On one end, I'm just fired up. I'm excited. I'm fired up to be getting married to the love of my life, to celebrate with my friends and family, to be around everyone that I love, and to soak up this moment and to begin this new chapter as a husband and soon to be father. And amazing stuff. Like, I'm so lucky. I'm so blessed to be able to experience this, and with my parents and my friends, and just the beauty of love and celebrating life and being in joy. And oh my God, it's incredible. But in the same token, there's always this feeling, this sort of ambient feeling that something's missing. And it's extremely high resolution. This feeling is extremely high resolution in big moments, in family moments where, like, my sister would normally be, sitting next to me, but she was very energetic and uplifting, and she absolutely loved family events, like absolutely loved being around her family. And that's something that, when maybe she was alive, that's something that I didn't possess as much as I should have, because maybe I wanted to be somewhere else. They were usually on weekends where I should be playing baseball, or I could be doing this, or I could be doing that. And, I was just a young man, and I wasn't as mature as I am now, and certain life circumstances hadn't happened to sort of flip that switch in me that allowed me to get dialed in on what's truly important. And so now, these events with my family, especially the ones that I don't get to see very often, and I consider my best friends, who are my groomsmen, to be my family, my chosen family, the ones that have been there for me when really things fucking matter. And so that's my family too. Everyone coming is my family. And so now I cherish these moments, and I work really hard outside of big events to see people that I care about as much as often. And I've taken that away from what my sister did and how she lived her life and how she spent, those precious moments with family, and how she was present in those moments. And so that's something that drives me in these moments, but it's also a sense of, again, like this ambient sense of something's missing, because something is missing, her actual human physical body. Now I know, because it's been 6 years, again, she passed away in September 3rd, 2018. We're in September of 2024. I've learned a lot in those 6 years about grief and emotions and feeling things. And I know that she's spiritually with me. She's actually always with me. That's why I'm doing the work that I'm doing. That's why I created You Are Loved, which if you're watching on YouTube, you can see on this hat, and you can go to youarelovedlife.com for much more information about the work we do with my mental health nonprofit. But this podcast is also driven by that, having these sort of conversations that get to the heart, having deep, insightful, vulnerable, honest conversations that get to the heart of the matter, and me trying to navigate my feelings about great stuff that happens while also feeling guilt and shame and resentment and relief and all of these things that come up. And if you don't sort of go into it head on, if you don't attack these things head on, then you're never going to be able to fully heal, let's say. I don't know if heal is the right word, because when you lose someone to suicide, it's something that never goes away ever. So maybe healing is the wrong word. Maybe it's just able to move forward with it. I'm moving forward with it. I don't want to, let's say, heal because I don't ever want to forget about my sister. That's why I do multiple episodes every single year about her. That's why I look at her pictures and listen to songs that she loved and all of these things, because I want to feel like she's with me and a part of my life, which she is, but you need those reminders at some point. And then feel like you go days and weeks without thinking about said person that you lost. And then I start to feel like shit. And then I sort of spiral down into this guilt of why am I so happy, or why am I so lucky? Like all of these sort of grief emotions that we tend to feel when going through something hard. And so again, that's why I think, I don't know if heal is the right word, but be able to manage and still find joy and still find love and still find happiness. I mean, clearly I have, because I'm marrying the love of my life, who's been an absolute miracle to me and my family, for bringing joy back in, for bringing a sense of hope, for having something to look forward to, whether that be a wedding, kids, or all of this stuff. And so shout out to her, my beautiful soon-to-be wife. Thank you for absolutely changing my life for the better. I couldn't be more thankful for you. And I truly believe that my sister and you would get along swimmingly. You guys would be great friends. Just big personalities, a lot of smiles. You could definitely play soccer together, even though I think my soon-to-be wife is a little bit better than my sister was, but still got a lot of love for the game and things of that to have in common. And I've slowly gotten my soon-to-be wife into superhero movies, which my sister also really enjoyed. And so there's just a lot of great stuff there. And, that makes me happy, that knowing that they would have been great friends, but it also makes me sad knowing that they can never actually have a cup of coffee together, or go have lunch together, or go hang out, or whatever the case may be. That's why I'm so incredibly happy that my mom, who's one of the most important people in my life, who I love dearly, gets along great with my soon-to-be wife. That relationship is really, really important to me, and it's so happy to see them get along and hang out and have joy and sharing these moments with all of us, and it's just a beautiful thing. And so there's a lot going on in my head, in my mind, in my body, but also in my life physically in the month of September. And I just wanted to share that with you guys, to get a little bit personal, because that's what this podcast is for me. Like, it's just to be an open forum for me to express open and honestly, and hopefully encouraging you guys to do the same in your life, or send in questions or comments or whatever the case may be about what's going on, or if we can have guests on, or if I can share some stuff that may help you, or whatever the case may be. But it's amazing how just so many mutual things can happen at one time, and we have to be able to accept that, feel that, and sort of ride those waves, and not get too attached to certain things, or not too wallowed into certain things, and be able to spiral up as we start to feel these emotions. But we have to accept that these emotions are what they are. We have to be aware, we have to accept, and we have to move into action. Action being many different things, but we have to be aware of our emotions, understand that they're real. We have to accept the fact that this is how I'm feeling, and then we move into some sort of action, whatever action might be in your mental health toolkit, which is something that we talk about a lot on this podcast. And so shout out to everyone who's just dealing with something really hard, something invisible, something that most people don't know about, and you're battling through it. You're battling through it. You're grinding through it. You're getting up every single day, making the choice to try and be the best version of yourself. And so I see you. You're absolutely capable. You're deeply loved. And I'm with you. I'm here for you on this journey. So thanks for indulging me in that little part of that. This is a very special and important episode that I do every single year. You can listen or watch the ones that I've done previous years in May and previous years in September. You can find all of those if you just search in the search bar at everybodyspod.com or on YouTube, on Apple, on Spotify. If you're not a subscriber or a follower there, please do so. If you subscribe to the newsletter, then you get emails directly of new podcasts I release every single week right to your inbox. And so anyways, so let's get into sort of the meat of this episode, which is 8 common myths about suicide. Let's debunk those. Let's tell some facts. Let's get some information out there that's honest about suicide, because it's still a very taboo topic that's in the dark. We got to bring it out into the light. The more we talk about it, the more we can help people sort of on the brink of that, bring them back, get them the help that they need. And so here are 8 common myths about suicide. Myth number 1, talking about suicide increases the chance a person will act on it. The fact actually is talking about suicide may reduce rather than increase suicidal ideation. It improves mental health related outcomes and the likelihood that the person would seek treatment. Opening this conversation helps people find an alternative view of their existing circumstances. If someone is in crisis, asking if he or she is thinking about suicide can very much help. So that's why we can't hesitate to start the conversation. And the first part of that is learning what to do when those conversations might come up. So that's myth number 1. Myth number 2, people who talk about suicide are just seeking attention. Fact is, people who die from suicide often told someone about not wanting to live anymore, or they just don't see the future. It's always important to take seriously anybody who talks about feeling suicidal. It's important to be kind and sensitive and ask direct questions such as, are you thinking about hurting yourself? Are you thinking about suicide? Or do you have access to weapons or things that can be used as weapons to harm yourself? So yes, there are certain circumstances where people are talking about suicide to get that attention, but they're trying to get that attention so that they can get the help they need. They just don't really know what way to go about it. And so it's important to take these things seriously. And then after you take it seriously with kindness, compassion, and sensitivity, you're asking these super direct questions so that person can give you a direct answer. And then there's a through line about where we can go to next in terms of help or support. Myth number 3, suicide can't be prevented. Fact is, suicide can be prevented, but is also unpredictable in certain circumstances. So most people who contemplate suicide often experience intense emotional pain, hopelessness, and have a very negative view of life or sort of their future in life. And suicide is definitely a product of genes, some mental health issues or illnesses, and definitely environmental risk factors. And so interventions like specifically targeted to treat these psychiatric or substance uses could save lives. And so not every suicide is the same. Like that's just like everyone's circumstance and situation is different. And a lot of times these suicides are unpredictable and there's maybe unseen warning signs or whatever the case may be. And so the reason we have to talk about it as much is so when people are starting to feel those negative thoughts or don't see a future for their life or they're having intense emotional pain, it's been talked about and discussed so much in society that they have a place that they can feel like they can go to someone or something that can allow some interventions to target some of these specific things that they might be feeling in regards to this sort of emotional pain or, negative view of their future or whatever the case may be. And so that's why sort of these conversations are extremely important and the reason why I do these episodes as frequently as I do. Myth number 4, people who take their own lives are selfish, cowards, or weak. Fact, People do not die of suicide by choice. Often, people who die of suicide experience significant emotional pain and find it difficult to consider different views or see a way out of their situation. Even though the reasons behind a suicide are very, very complex and different for every single person, frequently suicide is associated with very severe psychiatric illnesses. This one is the one that irritates me the absolute most, because after my sister passed, this is the one that came up so often. How could she do that? She's so selfish. She's so selfish. How could she do that? Yes, I understand that the survivors of the person who took their life, like the family who survives the suicide loss, are in sort of shambles literally the rest of their lives. Like, this is never going to go away for me or my family. And I understand that part. It's very, very hard. There's a lot of turmoil and guilt and shame that are left with us for the rest of our lives. But we choose to move forward with it anyways, like I said, finding joy and happiness. But to claim that the person who ended their own life was selfish doesn't encapsulate and doesn't allow you to fully understand what was actually going on. Now, if you've never been in a place where you've been in that sort of hell or that sort of intense emotional pain, then I'm happy for you. I wish no one ever has to feel that emotional pain ever again where they consider taking their own life. I hope that never happens to anyone ever. But if you've never experienced that or never seen someone firsthand experience that, then you don't understand what's happening inside the brain that allows this person to think, wow, I don't know what else to do. Because most of the time, people who take their own life don't actually want to die. What they're really thinking about is, I need this fucking pain to end. And so there's a lot of complex and comprehensive things that happen to get them to this point, and everyone's situation might be unique, but they're not selfish because of that. They're just in so much fucking pain, and they're in this deep, dark pit of hell that they don't know what else to do. And our job is to try and help people before they get to that point, so that we can draw them off, let them see the light, and move them towards space where they can have healing and conversations and honesty and support and love. But to claim that people who take their own lives are selfish is wrong. It's wrong. It's not true. And we need to stop saying that, because it disrespects the people that have died by suicide. And I will not allow someone to disrespect the strength and courage of my sister. I will not allow it. So please take a further understanding about what that actually means and why you consider those views. Consider the emotional distress, the absolute significant emotional hell that someone might be in to even consider taking their own life. Then say that's not selfish. It's just they see no other way out. And we have to understand this, because then maybe we can see some warning signs earlier, prevent something earlier, or get a hold of them earlier, have a conversation earlier, whatever the case may be, based on the very specific person that we might be, situation that we might be dealing with. So myth number 5. Teenagers and college students are at the most risk for suicide. Fact is, the suicide rate for this age group is below the national average, and suicide risk increases with age, as according to the data. The age group with the highest suicide rate in the U.S. is men and women between 45 and 64. However, a little bit more specific here, in the U.S., men are 4 times more likely to die by suicide than women, and males make up 50% of the population, but are nearly 80% of the suicides. Suicide rates have increased between Suicide rates increased 37% between 2000 and 2018, then decreased 5% between 2018 and 2020. However, rates have returned to their peak in 2022. So data is a couple years old, but it takes about a year for that data to be put together and put out into the public. So though particular groups may be at a higher risk, suicide is a problem among all ages and groups. It doesn't discriminate. That's why it's a conversation for all of us. But more specifically, like, there's a deeper conversation that needs to be had about men and how we can help men and why they are ending their own lives so frequently, because men are important. They're a valuable part of the society. I talk about men a lot on this podcast because I love men, and we need to treat them with respect. And as men, we need to treat ourselves with respect and understand our intrinsic value and how we can be useful and valuable to society, and how we can step into our fully masculine, embodied, healthy masculine role and do the things that we are put on this earth to do. Myth number 6. Barriers to bridges, safe firearm storage, and other actions to reduce access to lethal methods of suicide don't work. This is obviously just a myth. The fact is, limiting access to lethal means such as firearms is one of the simplest strategies to decrease the chances of suicide. Many suicide attempts are a result of impulsive decisions. Therefore, separating someone from a lethal means could provide a person some time to think before doing harm to themselves. Myth number 7. Suicide always occurs without warning. No, the fact is, there are almost always warning signs before a suicide attempt. Some of these warning signs are seen and unseen. So here are just a very few common signs, right? They're actually talking about suicide, making statements such as, I'm going to kill myself, I wish I were dead, I wish I hadn't been born. Getting the means to take your own life, such as buying a gun or stockpiling on pills. Another one would be withdrawing from social contact and wanting to be left alone on a longer basis, like over a long period of time. Having mood swings, such as being emotionally high one day and deeply discouraged the next. Another one would be being preoccupied with death, dying, or violence. Another one is feeling trapped or hopeless about a situation, right? Of course, increased use of alcohol or drugs, changing your normal routine, including eating and sleeping patterns, doing very risky or self-destructive things such as doing drugs or driving recklessly or anything that corresponds with some of those behaviors, giving away belongings or getting affairs in order when there's no other logical explanation for doing this, saying goodbye to people as if like you won't see them ever again, developing personality changes or being severely anxious or agitated, particularly when experiencing some of the warning signs listed above. So it's not a comprehensive list, but those are some very common signs that we can just have in the back of our mind and understand that there might be something going on that we need to touch on, we need to ask about, we need to further investigate or get support about for someone in our life that we care about. And so last myth number 8, talk therapy and medications don't work. This is obviously not true. The fact is, treatment can and does work. One of the best ways to prevent suicide is by getting treatment for your mental health issues, such as your depression, your bipolar disorder, your schizophrenia, your substance abuse, and learning to cope with some of these issues that you deal with on a day-to-day basis. Finding the best treatment does take time. It really does take time. But the right treatment can greatly reduce the risk of suicide. And so that's very important to understand. And so those are some of the myths. Those are just 8 common myths about suicide. Let's debunk those. Let's think about the facts of the matter, and let's continue to learn and understand about suicide so we can help more people reduce the suicide rates and allow more people to see the light, to see how intrinsically valuable and beautiful they are, and allow them to see another day so that we can see the beauty that they have to offer, because no matter what, the world needs you here. There will only be one you, like ever. There will only ever be one you, and the world needs you here. Your gifts, your talents, your mistakes, everything that you have to offer, the world needs you here. Please understand that, please. And so I'll leave you with this right here. The factors that can lead to suicide are complex and nuanced and are usually a mixture of both seen and unseen. What we know is that when internal beliefs mix with difficult life circumstances, it can create a pattern of thought in the brain that makes suicide seem like the right or only option. Please note that the concepts represented in this episode are by no means comprehensive, but a way to help people understand some of the basics of suicide. Putting words to these feelings and acknowledging their reality is a huge step, in either asking for help or checking in on someone you love. Communication and space for honesty are two things that cannot be overstated when it comes to encouraging healing. So, thank you very much for tuning into this episode. If you found it useful in any way, please share it with a friend. That really helps the podcast. But I appreciate you guys very much. The world needs you here. You are loved. And I'll see you next time. Lots of love. Cheers. Thank you very much for tuning into that episode. And if you enjoyed it, click right here for another full-length episode of the podcast. And please don't forget to subscribe. But most importantly, above all else, please take good care of yourselves and others. And I'll see you next time. Lots of love. Cheers.